Well, hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good whatever in the wherever in the beautiful world you are. Welcome to Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. And so full of joy to welcome back Gloria Masters from New Zealand. How are you, beautiful lady? How are things going there?
Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Chantel. So lovely to be back with you.
Yes.
Great.
It's great to see you. And you are just one of these amazing survivors. I love to call you overcomers because you really have overcome. You've overcome even surviving, um, and you're really sharing your light and your gift and your healing with the world. You've got such a beautiful gift, and you're using that in such amazing ways with your books and stuff you've written as well. So I love our topic for today because we know that Christmas holidays are coming up. And what for most people, well, on the surface, that is, Christmas is a beautiful time where we spend lots of money and be ostentatious and have family and drink too much and eat too much, all of that stuff. But for many survivors, all survivors, I would imagine that Christmas and these big holidays are horrible. We've often heard about Christmas being a time where the suicide rate is the highest, and I've wondered about that, but I've just often, put it down to, what you read stuff. People are in depression, maybe they don't have family and they're having a hard time or financial difficulties or whatever the case might be. We assume it's stuff like that. But on closer inspection, I have to say that I do believe that this has to be linked to a lot of SRA, especially SRA survivors, because of the rituals and the torture and the extreme abuse that occurs at these times, right? So I don't know. And I'm very happy to have this discussion with you, Gloria. So over to you. What do you say? How do you speak to us on that?
Yeah, so thank you. And I'm pleased you wanted to look at this tonight. The issue with Christmas is this, that and I'm talking not just SRA, I'm talking other survivors of child sexual abuse, a huge community of us globally. And what we know about this Christmas season is that it's the highest rate for suicides. And the reason for that, Chantel, is not what it seems. It's not that sometimes there's a lack of family. It's often because that's when the worst of abuse occurred. And I say that because when you consider it, that's when people are on holiday and have more time and more access. So for me as a child and for other survivors as children, when all the horror was occurring, we just had more attacks on us, and trying to survive that and being triggered by that was awful. Also, for those that are survivors, sometimes there were broken families, so the crossover to going to, say, your mother's house for part of the holidays would be that day when that transition took place. So there's many things that occur, and I think there's a myth out there that Christmas is this wonderful 2 adults, 2 children family dynamic, and that there are wonderful happy times with Christmas presents under the tree and everyone being loving and it's all about the children. Yeah, nah. So for us survivors and survivor community, it can be the hardest time of the year, actually, because the body never forgets. The body never forgets. And
if you don't mind, I would actually just like to share something about exactly what you're saying, because I was thinking about that. Trauma is stored within the body. Now, for those of you guys, I mean, I've often spoken about my experience that occurred when my fiance was killed in a hijacking. And yesterday was the anniversary of that. In fact, it happened on the 12th of December, but I only found out, I got the news on Friday, the 13th of December at 1300 hours. Excuse me. And I needed to go and identify the body, right? I was listed as his next of kin. And a bit of a graphic warning here. He was shot execution style, and the bullet came out of the front of his face. And I had to see that. The trauma of that was huge. So yesterday I woke up and I couldn't understand why I felt so bad. I knew it was the anniversary of his death, but it felt like something ominous was going to occur. And it was 26 years, which is, if you look at numerology, it's the 8, which is about transformation, right? And also for those of you that have just followed what I've been saying about this in the last few months, it started with my tooth that suddenly had this abscess. And when you look at where the teeth sit, it was the tooth of grief. And that's when I started having tooth issues with this tooth. And that's how long it's been carrying on. So when that came out, I also then, it was revealed to me that he was in fact taken out in a hit, which I suspected, but I wasn't sure of. And that revealed everything. So now a few months later, well, that was, I think October, so around about September or October. So now as we move on to actually August, that happened in August of this year. And now it's December, the anniversary. And suddenly, yesterday afternoon, I just stood and I went, oh my gosh, this is my body remembering the trauma. And it was such a liberating feeling, yet so painful, because emotionally I was there again. But it gave me the opportunity to let it go. And only because I was able to do that yesterday, literally yesterday, am I able to talk about it today. The emotion is there, but the cellular trauma has gone. I prayed, I meditated. It was a busy day for me, but I had 2 hours in between. I took a walk on the beach. I just sat with my feet in the ocean, and I just let it go. And that was incredible, because just from my experience, which, yes, was traumatic for me, I can imagine how when you've been tortured and petrified and traumatized year after year, how that can affect your spirit, your emotions, your mental well-being, and your physical being. So I think it's very important, to understand just how we contain the trauma, and the body holds on to that trauma. And when you are ready, 26 years later to the day, I could finally release the final trauma. It's insane how we work in layers. And, God just shows us when we are willing and open for healing, it doesn't have to occur all at that monstrous moment of explosion and everything. Just no, we do it in layers. And when we are ready, and it took me to understand the occult in the way that I have in the last 2 years, and how the secret societies work, and how that all linked into what I experienced then. I would not have understood it before this moment. So once I understood how the system worked and how I was even indirectly involved, it was amazing. And so every person has their individual way of understanding these things and, in their life. But I'm really happy to be talking about that just through my experience, which I want to say it was very traumatic for me. But to have someone have the pain inflicted on them and tortured and traumatized, I can imagine that must be quite a scary place to want to go back and confront, right?
Are you okay, beautiful Chantel?
I am. Thank you. I am.
Sending love to you.
I receive it. Thank you. So how do you, and not necessarily just you, but you've obviously spoken with a lot of survivors and overcomers about these highlighted holidays: Christmas, Halloween, Easter, Valentine's Day, all of these inverted holidays that really on the surface they look so beautiful and glitzy, but the underbelly of that is something really extreme. So how do you find you guys in that community have dealt with your trauma, and what has worked for you around letting this go?
Well, it's interesting because, speaking to survivors and understanding what happens and how people feel triggered.
Yes.
It's, remember, as people who have survived this sort of trauma and torture,
Yeah.
the first thing we had to do was make it our fault because we didn't have any power and we were children. So we had to turn ourselves bad before we could make sense of it and understand it was the adults around us who were causing all of that. So when you start from that basis, in my opinion, the self-love is not there. And so it can almost feel impossible then to feel you deserve to have any joy or happiness in your life. So when these occasions occur, like Christmas, you have a sense of, well, it was never any good anyway. And so how can I possibly think, ho, 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 Merry Christmas, everybody? And I'm aware that we need to dig deep for some of us to find the resource or the light to find the way through. And what I've done a lot of thinking about this for our survivor community and realized, there is one thing we can do which does help us, and that is find something to feel grateful for or appreciative of. It doesn't have to cost you money and you don't have to leave the house, but it might be that you woke up in the morning and the sun was shining across the water, or you had that walk on the beach.
Yeah.
Or that you're alive and you're not worried about money for the next month. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it genuinely fills you and lifts you, because I believe the answer lies within. And by that I mean, I think we sometimes can spend time looking outside of ourselves for the quick fix or the wisdom. And I guess my experiences taught me to always go within, because I'll be led or guided or discover there's an answer there if I can just listen for it.
Let's say someone is newly, let's say, getting memories or, coming out of this and what have you.
Yeah.
I agree, because having been a healer myself for more than 2 decades now, it's very difficult when someone has been traumatized so much to get them to feel that unseen joy, that kind of feeling of bliss when you wake up in the morning, feeling great and just feeling alive and grateful that I have this incredible space and that I have friends and whatever, What would you suggest would be tools to offer people to get to that place? I agree with you. Get up in the morning and just look at the sun and say, well, I don't feel grateful right now, but I guess I must say thank you. Even if we just start with that type of experience or thought process, I always say it starts with a decision. You decide that you are sick and tired of being freaking sick and tired, that there is no other way for you except now to stop being sick and tired, and then surrender. Not surrender to being sick and tired, but surrender to knowing this is no longer the way. What is the other way? That's what I'm saying, the tools that give us there.
Yeah, and I like what you're saying. I think 2 things. One, when you consider when people are going through this trauma and the recovery of the memories, or they're new to understanding what's happened to them, the worst thing you can do is try and block and stop it, because it will just emerge somehow, and you'll get a gentle nudge, and then you might get a bit of a slap, and the next thing you're being bulldozed with it. So don't try and stop it. It's there to show you something and teach you something. However, you can actually use some ideas around distracting self so that you can function. So that whole compartmentalizing thing can be useful when you're having to live your life and go to work amidst the trauma surfacing. Yeah. So I think giving yourself permission and acknowledging it's there is key. Because we can't pretend and we can't fake it. And Chantel, one of the key things for me is, as children, when all this was happening, our instinct was, no, I don't want it, but we were never listened to. So we started to doubt ourselves, yeah? So now as adults, when we start to feel those things, we start to doubt ourselves, and self-love is nowhere to be seen. So I think it's really important we acknowledge, first of all.
So let's say, I love what you said there, because as you say, it's the acknowledgement that my self-doubt, my self-hatred, my self-loathing, whatever it might be, is directly linked to something that someone else instilled in me that is not true. So even if I don't feel the truth right now, my mind, somewhere in my brain, it's registering that that's a falsity in me. And that in itself is such a powerful place to get to, because that acknowledgement sparks something in you. And you might not feel it now. It might take a day or 2, or it might take a week to suddenly register in you, but it does, because it's in your cells. And once your brain, which is the computer of your body, has registered something, it's going to send that message, right? And to the cells of the body, and the cells are going to respond accordingly. So if we just do enough repetition, stand in front of the mirror, look at yourself in the eye, and you might feel that compulsion to vomit or run away or whatever, but say, I love you, and then run away. Just do that. It's such an important thing. And then try and do that 3 times a day. And then try and look at yourself for a second before you say. You know,
Yeah,
it's really about.
Yeah, and look, the other thing I think is really powerful is to turn it around as well. And by that I simply mean, yes, the fear will emerge. Yes, that when you're triggered, you can feel like you're right back in the situation. But hey, tell yourself, this is validating me. This is vindicating me, because it wouldn't be there. My body would not be producing this were it not true. So I encourage survivors to flip it on its head and say, thank you for validating me.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that what you're saying, flip it on its head, because I always say, you know, God has created everything, or source, right? What the Lucy's do is they cannot create, they only emulate. So they take which was already there and they've inverted it and they've turned it into something so obscene.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is exactly flip it up. Everything they've said to you about you, go to the opposite of that. If they said you are worthless, nonsense, because you would not be there. You would not be under their torturous little claws unless they wanted something of great worth from you. So,
and even yes, and adding to that, I really like that. I love it. And even adding to that is, if you're in the presence, or you can remember someone needing to lower you and stomp on you and put you down, the issue lies with them.
exactly.
You will know when you're with the right people, because they either elevate you and have you feeling good about who you are, or you feel safe. Anyone that
Absolutely.
needs to have you feeling less than, the issue lies with them.
Absolutely. And that's so important. And that's when it's so important to be able to say, right, what am I feeling now? Shame. He's trying to make me feel ashamed. What do I need to be proud of? What does he want? What is he trying to kill in me? What do I need to be proud of? And then start looking at things within yourself for which you can be proud. The very fact that you are alive means that you should be very proud, because you've got strength in you that few have. So you can be proud of the strength. What is strength? How does strength manifest itself? Compassion, kindness. You love animals. You're compassionate. You want to help. Wow, that's what that boy in me. That's what I can be proud of. So let's focus on the opposite of what they try to take away from you. And let's see how we turn that around. Remember, we live in a world of polarizations, right? The equal opposite. There's an opposite to everything. So if they try to make you feel, as I said, shame, there's something so strong and powerful in you that they were trying to suck out of you. They would not have you on their slab if you were not worthy. They try to make you feel worthless, really. But they went to all those extremes to torture you and hurt.
Yeah.
So
Anything that was done to you was a complete projection
total,
of their own self-loathing.
exactly. And that's so important. That is so important to understand. Think about this in the real world. They are grown men and women doing this to a child. What do you think beneath all that shit they must really be feeling about themselves be doing that? They are so tortured themselves. They clearly have had that happen to them. Clearly, who knows, at some point they were kids too, right? So let us have compassion for that. We don't condone their actions, but we have compassion that at some point this person was a child too. And we can appeal spiritually to the child in them.
I
We
think,
heal each other.
Yes, but I also think, we're always on a pathway. Our mind is always taking us to optimum healing, optimum performance all of the time.
Yes.
Sometimes for us as survivors, I held on determinedly to my lack of forgiveness and lack of compassion for my abusers, because I felt self-righteously justified in feeling the hatred. And it fueled me, Chantel. It took me many decades, but had anyone ever tried to encourage me to show forgiveness or compassion, I would have shot them.
Yeah, I get it.
Because I couldn't. And when you
Yeah.
know my story, and there's many of us out there, I'm just very grateful to be alive, frankly, and to survive years of this torture.
And you have the strength, you see, and look what you're doing now. And this is what I say, you know, you have, through that experience, you've opened up so many gifts within yourself, which you're now sharing, because isn't that what gifts are about? They're meant to be shared, right?
Yes.
So, you know, it's what you're sharing, and it's what the seeds of light you are now yourself bringing to the world. So I think that is amazing. And I think every person who has survived anything horrific out there, you have a story to tell. You have a life to change. And I think that is so important. And I really want to say, you know, also, let's just go back to the physicality of this time. Let's say people are still in a family environment where they are still with abusers and they can't get out, whether it's parents or spouses or whatever. What would you say to people at this time to deal with that? Maybe they don't feel like they've got a way out. How do they start dealing with their emotions that are intensified at this time?
Yeah. So look, I think I can't under or over emphasize the self-love and the self-compassion. If that means you need to eat too much chocolate, eat too much chocolate. If that means you need to spend time by yourself away for whatever reason you need to give, just give it, do it. Do whatever you can to nurture and love yourself. Because by doing that, you're getting little sound bites, little pockets of time, which breaks the circuit, you see.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love the way you put that. I love the way you... Please just repeat that again, because I think that is so important, because everything in life is energy. So as you say, you're breaking that circuit by giving yourself love.
Well, I think if you, and by that I mean, we think of the energy that they're living in, and by people removing themselves or taking themselves off, they're breaking the circuit. So the energy cannot continue because the circuitry is being broken. So the power does not stay with the perpetrator or abuser. And I think what happens is we've got people, and one size doesn't fit all, Chantel, as we know, for our beautiful survivors out there. What may work for me, eating too much chocolate, watching Netflix, going for a walk on the beach, journaling is good if you don't have people you can reach out to. Journaling can be a really powerful way as well, because you're safe to put onto paper. And yeah, I think it just comes down to being as gentle, kind, self-loving as you can be, because what you're doing, guys, is you're actually recreating that inner child. You're actually giving that inner child a new experience. So isn't that beautiful?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I really think, I mean, it's so important what you say. It breaks that circuit energetically. You know, it kind of brings in that spark of light and of new life. which then obviously dissolves that. And the more you do that, the more momentum you create. And soon that whole loop is then dissolved and that energy has presented itself in a beautiful way. Yeah.
Another little technique that I use, and people hate it, is I call it the 6-second rule. And it takes 6 seconds for the logical brain to override the emotional brain. 6 seconds is quite a long time. But as survivors, if someone, let's say there's an abuser in the house, or someone who was a gatekeeper or enabler and just didn't have your back, and you're having to see them at this time of year, just when they speak, evoke the 6-second rule and just watch their whole face change. Because you're taking your power back, you see.
Yeah.
A non-response is a powerful response.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Am I making sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And as you say about the non-response, but at the same time, standing your ground, it's about standing strong, standing your ground, facing whatever, being non-responsive, maybe a little smile or a greeting.
Yep, I think as long as, and you're right, as long as you stand in your power. But you see, you and I both know, for a lot of these abusers or pedophiles or Freemasons out there, what they do is they are so used to having the power over that when you don't respond, or you respond with a non-response, you're taking your power back. And you and I both know these people can be borderline personalities, they can be psychopaths, they can be complex narcissists, whatever they happen to be, Chantel. The point is, sometimes there's no point in you opening your mouth.
Absolutely.
Because what happens? You're fighting for air, and you end up like this on the edge of the pool, just trying to breathe.
And especially when there's stuff like alcohol involved, right? Because this is also a high alcohol consumption time. Yeah. So the worst thing time to argue with someone, right, is when any kind of substances have been involved. So that would be another one of those non-responsive moments.
Yeah.
Or those times that you just, as much as what you might feel triggered at that moment.
Now, the interesting thing too as well, and it's something I think I may have brought to you in the past, we have our abusers on one side, we have our beautiful survivors on the other, but in the middle there's a big group, and I call them the gatekeepers and the enablers. And the reason I say that is because they always had knowledge and they chose to do nothing. So that's the group that sometimes at Christmas time or at this time of year, people are having to see. And they're not the abuser, but they still enabled it by...
Absolutely. Which is sometimes worse, isn't it?
Yes. So I'm saying to you, I saw this the other day, Chantel, and you're going to love it, so I'm going to read it to you. And it's this. People ask, how can a person abuse a child? I ask, how can so many good people not do anything about it? Yeah, absolutely. And that's where our enablers and our gatekeepers sit, right in the middle. And we always focus on the abusers, but I'm here to say, I'm changing the narrative a bit here, because we got quite a cool group here. All it takes for evil to exist is for good people to do nothing. And that is the quote in my memoir on Angel's Wings, Edmund Burke. All it takes evil to exist, Chantel.
Exactly. And, Gloria, for me, just the past 2 years, speaking to so many overcomers, there is always someone who's not saying something. A 3-year-old does not get trafficked out of her home if her parents are unaware of it. Don't for one second think that someone can take a child, a 3-year-old child, out of their home, and then it's the uncle or the granny or whatever, and the parents knew nothing. There is always someone enabling that. So I'm saying that again brings about this huge sense of betrayal, right?
Yes.
Like, who do you trust? Because these are the people that you, and I think more than, as you say, the abuser perpetuating this abuse, it's mom, how could you let that happen? And more, when we've been doing interviews with Jessie Zabotar, who, for I think everyone on the show knows who Jessie is now. She was trained to be the Queen Mother of Darkness. And she talks about the light side of the system as well, because like when they'd have their battles, their witchy battles, and they'd get scarred and wounded, then the Sisters of Light come and do magical healing, and then the wounds are gone. The emotional scars are still there, because suddenly tomorrow no one sees anything, but you are still stuck with this trauma. And what she says so often, it's the women in the system who enable it over and over and over again. You're going to find, and some of the greatest names that are being mentioned right now are powerful women. HRC, right? There's one. Gloria Vanderbilt, another. Okay, we look at these women celebrities, right, who are occupying high Luciferian positions. You've got to know what they've done to get there. So how do, as women in this world, because we are the mothers, this is another thing, is I think when a mother loses her child, it's a scar that I don't believe can ever go away. I really and truly don't believe that. And I think it's a pain that only another mother who's lost her child can truly understand, when that life has grown inside of you. I had a miscarriage several years ago. And I want to tell you, when I had a miscarriage, it was so heart-wrenching for me, because my whole life changed in those few weeks that I was pregnant. This little thing grew inside of me. I became so connected to it. And the next thing, it's gone. Now I can imagine, and I've been pregnant as well, and I've given birth to my son. So I know what it's like to have a life grow inside of you as well, and to lose that is a terrible thing. So how do we as women support each other? I mean, we talk about this all the time, and, I'm not interested in the superficial stuff, like you got your girl back, nonsense. I'm talking about on these real deep issues. How do we as women, as the nurturers of the world, call out other women who we are seeing are doing these things? How do we as women who are solid in our strength, because really we understand we can have a myriad of reasons why women do what they do. I'm not interested in that anymore. I want to know how we can support, not judge women who are perpetuating abuse, because again, we got to understand there's all psychology behind each and every person as to why they turn out the way they do. As a healer of 20 years, I know this. So how do we support the perpetrator as well as the enabler?
How do we support?
I understand. Yes, because I think these people need support. Instead of judging them, and I'm not talking about the super powerful stuff. I'm talking about what's happening in our environment now. If there's a mother, if there's a neighbor, if there's an aunt, if there's someone is doing something harmful, whether it's to a child, a husband, if she an animal, if she's having an affair and running around on her husband. These are the things I want to say. It's not about judging, but it's about supporting people through these times. And as women, we help heal, as opposed to become these witches from hell trying to take each other down. Because you see what I'm saying? Healing as opposed to...
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways. One, role model. I think we role model, we lead by example. Two, we gently confront, and you can use words like, hey, I just wanted to chat to you because it's just not who you are, and I'm just noticing this behavior, all these words. I'm just a bit concerned because that's not who I believed you to be. Are you okay?
Yeah.
So if we come at it gently and with empathy, that's more likely to allow someone to open up than if we come in attacking. But I always think role modeling is a good thing to do, because these people can't be feeling good about themselves, Chantel.
No
And
ways.
if they're behaving in this way or enabling in this way, their children or beautiful young people are at terrible risk. So we've got to find a way in. But
Obviously.
equally, my challenge is always this, and I was talking to someone at law enforcement in America who wants me to provide some information for them. And they said, what do we say? What would you say to the police over there who just feel sick that they didn't spot the abuse? And you know what the simple answer is? And this is what I'm giving you right now when you think about these females who are not doing what they could be. Stop looking to the adult and start looking to the child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
what happens is we stand a child and an adult up, and guess where the adult who's talking to them eyes always go to? The adult.
Yeah, exactly.
Stop. Start to
Yeah.
notice the child.
Yeah, exactly. The
So,
child is a product of its environment. It's going to respond to its environment. Let's never forget that.
yeah, a child won't say, I'm struggling, I'm being abused. A child will show you through their behavior and their play.
Yeah.
Their play shows us so much. But so the point is, back to your thinking, women can be very competitive, Chantel, so that needs to be mentioned. And so instead of standing beside each other, because together we're stronger, and supporting each other and appreciating each other, there can be this dreadful competitiveness. Now, that comes about partly, I believe, through the unconscious bias that society has generally about women. You've got to be a certain height, weight, have no lines on your face, and look a certain way in order to be seen as attractive. That's just general bullshit, but it's what happens. Men don't have to live under that same bias. Yeah.
Yeah. True.
So we've got that. We start out on the back foot with that. So women naturally have don't feel good enough. Most women I know kind of or talk about how they look a lot, which is, it's just a conditioning thing in a society.
Yeah.
But
So
anyway,
I was going to say,
answer your question about how we.
yes, it definitely does. And I think by nature that is true. And I would like to see that more and more of us no longer keep quiet. And I think that's really what the gist of this is for me, especially at these times, if we see things happening to a child, to an innocent, let us not pretend it's not happening. Let us actually be the ones that actually, as you say, go to the child. Is everything okay? I notice that you're feeling this way. I notice you're behaving strangely. If there's anything you want to talk to me about, let's go. Let's go for a walk. Do you want to go to the shop? Do you want to go for a walk on the beach? Whatever. And I think that is so important that the reason why we are where we are is because too many people don't want to get involved. It is not our right anymore just to pretend things aren't happening around us. I think that's what I'm saying. 2 days ago, I'm standing here and I hear this almighty screaming from across the road, a guy screaming, yelling. And I'm like, what the hell? And I know from what he's saying, why are you peeing in the house? So it's an animal. But this almighty, I'm sorry, I maintain I'm a voice for the animals. There's no ways in a situation like that, I'm not going to say something. I walk up, now we're in a quiet cul-de-sac, right? So he's across the road, one house to the right. And I go and I say, And there I walk out, he's standing there, which was his daughter, and this poor dog sitting in the middle of the road now with his back to me, because I'm coming from the cowering. And I'm going, is everything okay? They look at me and I go, is everything okay? And he answers, yes, I'm just not happy with my dog. I said, sir, that is no way to treat an animal. I said, your daughter here, do you scream at her like that? Do you scream at your wife like that? Does someone scream at you like that? How do you respond to someone screaming to you like that? I said, how do you think your dog feels when you scream and humiliate your dog in the street? Then he starts arguing. I said, I'm an animal whisperer. I said, you're doing this animal more harm than good. I said, this is no way to train your animal. And then the little girl started saying, Daddy, let's go. And I said, it's fine. And then he says, well, thank you very much. I said, you are most welcome. I said, it's very important to treat our animals well because they reflect who we are. Oh, and what I said to him as well, I said, your screaming just shows us how out of control you are. I said, no one responds well to that behavior. No one. And, you know, that's how I deal with situations like that. So it's not, I'm not attacking the guy. Oops. Where did, I think she's run out. But what I was saying is I wasn't attacking the guy, but I was really saying that it's not okay to behave in that way. And I think that's what's important for us at this time. Yep, here I go on. That's what's important for us. And that's what I'm trying to say, guys, is that if there's something that you're noticing at this time, especially, and especially us women, you know, us women tend to be more aware about these things than what our male counterparts are. And I'm not, that's a generalization I get, but as women, we generally are more intuitive to these things. So there we go. Here's Gloria back. So let us not be quiet. Let us be a voice for the children. Let us be a voice for the animals. Let us be a voice for fellow women who are in trouble and we can see. Let us be a voice for our male counterparts. Well, they deserve as much love. You know, if we see they being messed around by people and their partners, you know, have their back too. Just do what you feel is 100%. Right.
I think I got so upset about the dog thing, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry about that. But no, I agree with you. And I think role modeling is so powerful. And, you know, I think all it takes is also, Chantel, looking outside of self. We are such an individualistic, siloed mentality throughout the world, yeah? And so what tends to happen is it's all about me.com instead of saying, hey, you know what? Thank you for the wonderful work you're doing in the world. I really appreciate you.
Absolutely.
I mean that, by the way, Chantel, but you know what I mean? Instead of thinking, we just think about self. And I think sometimes self can be a bit much. And I don't mean for survivors that the focus shouldn't be on self-love, because it should. But I just sometimes think, notice that old lady in the supermarket can't quite reach that top shelf. What does it hurt to say, can I help you?
Absolutely.
Or that mum walking in the rain with a toddler and a little baby, and she's obviously walking. Can I help you? You know, it's stepping outside of ourselves. We are Absolutely. One. We are all connected, surely.
Exactly. Acts of kindness. And I think that's what it is. And I think we also mentioned it on one of our previous shows as well. You know, we don't really realize what people have been through. What I'm noticing more and more these past few years, as I say, is just how many people have been through horrific abuse, such as yourself, and not necessarily to that extreme, but abuse nonetheless. And they have all, obviously, we know when a child is abused or a woman is abused or a man is abused, it changes who you are. So you respond in certain ways. So maybe those of us who feel wiser and more understanding of these things now, when someone reacts to us in a negative way, maybe just step back and just acknowledge that they may be having a bad day. Maybe you don't know what this person's life's. Not that you've got to become a punch bag, not at all, but just to be a little bit more understanding of people's situations that we probably have no idea of. We hear these stories from overcomers like yourself day in and day out, and I'm so blessed. I feel so blessed that over the time that we've just been doing this, how many other channels have started speaking with survivors and things like that. More and more people using their voices, right? And that is such a good thing. So the more people who are speaking, the more groups that people are forming on Facebook, on Twitter, on Telegram, more and more people are sharing. And I think it's just a beautiful time just to, be part of that wave of change.
Yeah, 100%. And I think at this time of year as well, please look outside of yourself. There are people struggling.
Yeah.
The most divorces happen this time of year. The most suicides happen this time of year. Horrible things happen this time of year. So I think we just need to have eyes wide open. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. Wow, lovely conversation. I just want to check the chats here quickly and just see if there have been some commentors. Kanga Anan, I'm glad you came across the stream today. Perfect timing. Thank you, Chanti and Gloria. Isn't it wonderful when we do stuff and it just resonates exactly, with people? Someone says, evil can go on again. Evil thrives when good people do nothing. Absolutely. And again, rise and shine. People don't want to know about it. They can't, we can't understand that. We're noticing more and more with this cognitive dissonance. But I'm also grateful that more and more people have woken up over the past 2 years, for sure. I mean, if I just see what it was when we began to where it is now, it's really amazing.
It is amazing.
And then obviously Rise and Shine was saying about when the mom, that seems to be why the mother gets the brunt of the anger rather than the abuser. And I have to say that, over the years that I've been a healer and worked with people, and people, we must remember the baby's born, obviously, in the mom's belly. So the baby feels safe, grows there for 9 months. It's part of the mom, right?
Yeah.
And then take out, and then suddenly the father abuses and stuff, and there's no safety. And also through the years, what I've realized, most of the anger that those people feel, that those women especially feel, is actually not directed at the father, but at the mom, because the mom never protected them. Remember, you grow in the womb. So subconsciously, the child will always see the mom as the protector. I laugh. So one of our friends, is a little girl, she was maybe about 6 at the time, and her dad was telling her to do something. She says, "I'm not listening to you. Mom's the boss of me. I came out of her tummy."
They got that right.
I was going to say, it makes perfect sense to me. How do you argue with that? Mom's the boss of me. I came out of her tummy.
But it also shows you how children naturally just want mum because of that bond and that vibe. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's beautiful.
Exactly. And it's such a bonus for the kids when dad is there. And I'm really one of those lucky ones, I got to say. My father was there waiting for all of us with open arms, and he played. He was the 6'6" gentle giant. He played, we grew up on the farm. I was out with him all the time, playing tennis with him, on the horses with him, everywhere with him. It was just so good. I have such a good balance of memories. My dad, like, we were boarding school. He'd come and he'd wake me up in the morning, take me to school. You know, he was the one that took us to school, fetch us on a Friday. When I was playing tennis tournaments and things, he was the one that was mostly there. My mom was there too, and she was there in other ways. But it's amazing when you actually find that balance. And I want to just say, those of us who have that, feel blessed. Feel so blessed, because that is, honestly, in my journey as a healer, that is one thing I realized very, very quickly, how lucky I am to have the parents I do.
Yes.
Someone's saying, oh, here we go. I don't know how to Maingankwe. Maingankwe. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I just had my 17-year-old daughter listen for a few minutes, and she really liked the advice, especially the 6-second advice. Thank you for that, Gloria. Yeah. Don't protect the child's eyes. Absolutely. Unfortunately, no one can protect our eyes. And that's it. Beautiful. Thank you, Gloria, so much for another amazing chat with you. We look forward to having you back. We're going to be doing some round tables next year. We've got some nice connections planned with a lot of our survivors as well, overcomers, as I like to call you guys. And look forward to really sparking the world on fire with the best possible flames, God light, and just creating more awareness and healing, and just more and more people stepping out and losing this fear, because that's all it is. I always say the acronym for fear: false evidence appearing real. Fear's job is to make you think and believe you can't achieve something. Fear's job is to deceive you. Fear, remember, fear is the devil's energy, right? It's very tempting and very deceiving. Your job is to walk towards your fear and conquer it anyway, because then you're going to see it's just the illusion. So, thank you so much, Gloria. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
Just that for you and your fabulous audience, keep that light you have, protect it, make sure it glows as brightly as it can, because you are casting that and sharing on others.
Absolutely. Just keep nurturing it. Absolutely. And the way we nurture it is to keep loving ourselves, loving each other, and loving creation. You know, and understanding that everything is an opportunity for growth.
It is.
And expansion. Thank you so much to all our beautiful viewers for joining us. In my case this morning, I know, Gloria, where are you now? You at night, right?
Yeah. So it's just after 9 o'clock at night.
Okay. My lights have just come on. Wow.
There you go. We were just talking about light.
Yeah, you see, load shedding is now officially over for the next 3 hours. I have it 3 times today, but hey, I'll embrace my globes while they're here.
They should globe. Thank you, Chantel. Have a very safe, lovely Christmas.
And to you too, Gloria, sending you lots of love.
Much love.
Guys, if we don't see you, but I will still be on our channel for quite a while yet. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Travel safe, take care of yourselves, take care of your loved ones. Keep your kids close to you. Remember, your love is much more valuable than any gift that you can buy off the shelf. That's really, and I can say that as a healer for 20 years. Every person I've worked with, and I've worked with the paupers, and I've worked with the ones that are mega wealthy. The mega wealthy ones will tell me, I just wish my mom gave me a hug on Christmas. Not all these toys. I just wish my mom hugged me. And that's what we must remember. Just give love. It's a time for love. It's not a time for giving things. It's a time for enjoying your families, being appreciative. Let's spare a thought for those children that are currently on the underbelly. Let's send light and love and blessings, and just that they pray, get out of it ASAP. Take good care, guys. Love you all.
Bye.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. And I am so excited today. I have one of my very, 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 very special humans on, Yanna Smith from Namibia. And well, before I go ahead, hello, beautiful. I have been trying for months to hook you into a show. Finally, I have you. How are you?
I'm very well, Chantal. Thank you so much for having me. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you. And really good to have you here because I want to just give an introduction to our viewers on what you're doing right now. And then I would love for you just to fill in who you are, where you come from, what got you onto this path, all those beautiful, interesting human things. And then from there, we're going to have a series. And in fact, Yanna is going to be a regular on this channel because currently she's doing her PhD in natural sciences. And her thesis is combating human-wildlife conflict in the southwestern perimeter of Etosha in Namibia. So it is incredibly interesting what you're doing. I know you've got an absolute heart for humanity, the animals, the people, everything. I've known you for many years, and we've spent many, many hours having conversations about this. So I am so grateful that finally we get to this point where we can have this conversation on a whole nother level. So over to you. Tell us about you.
Okay. So born and raised in Namibia. Always been an animal lover since I can remember. I've loved animals. Got into natural sciences really late in my life at around 25. Went back to university, and then of course I was, I don't know, the typical. If we can get people out of the way, then we can save the lions. My work was mostly centered around lions and lion conservation. And then I finished my master's, and then I moved to a plot. And then we had sheep, and we had Wilbur, and you know Wilbur, Chantal.
Well, tell us about Wilbur. That's a very interesting story because I know a lot of the viewers who've been following us know about Henry. Henry's our cow, our ox that we rescued from the slaughterhouse. But before Henry, there was Wilbur. So why don't you tell us how this came about, which is actually the catalyst to you doing the PhD that you're doing right now. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. So we were, on the plot, and we love animals. So everything was centered around just, obviously, I mean, we slaughtered, we sold, but it was all done honorably with rituals and so on. But so Wilbur's mom, it was drought in 2016, at the end of 2016, early 2017. The rains came quite late that year, although they came well. But just before they came, a lot of the cattle owners left their animals on the road reserves to graze. And we drove 8 kilometers into Okahanya, which is just about 60 kilometers north of Windhoek. And we saw this cow with her calf. And 4 days later, the cow was down with her calf standing under the tree. And that's when we knew we needed to step in. So we stepped in. We had her go with the JCB. We called in help. And anyway, so she went to the plot. Jewel was her name. And then she died eventually, that night. And then we rescued Wilbur. And my son named him because he had just watched Charlotte's Web. And Wilbur, I think, was for me the greatest soul to ever enter my life. And I've raised lions, I've kissed lions, I've had many tamed lions in my life. I've had many wild lions that I've known well, semi-wild lions, human habituated lions. But Wilbur changed everything. And that's when I realized that coming from a background where if we could just remove all the livestock and save the lions, the livestock needed to be saved too. And I have been working on a PhD since 2011, but I couldn't find the right one until I eventually settled on, round about 2013, that the lion is an archetype. And then I started investigating Jung, and I went into collective unconscious and inherited memory. And I have a lot of rescue dogs, and my bitches who have not suffered a day of abuse in their life will still respond the way their moms do. And I have a genetics as my second subject in my BSc degree. So I got into epigenetics, and I got into the lion is an archetype, and then I got into anthropology, and then I got into my PhD, which is about traditional ecological knowledge or indigenous knowledge and ancient knowledge and the spiritual value of animals, and trying to use that to combat human-wildlife conflict with people in the equation.
I think what you're doing is amazing, because fundamentally it's not what we have been taught at all. You know, we on this planet live by a very, I call it the kill culture. You know, if people fear something and they don't understand it, they're going to kill it. And
Right.
we see this all the time, right? And it's not just that, but it's like and it's very real. When you're looking at farmers with their livestock and the predators that are taking out their livestock, for example, the farmer will see the solution that he shoots the predators. But that has been happening for so long, and it's clearly not the solution. So,
Absolutely not.
yeah.
So if, for example, let's go straight back to what everybody will understand. Snakes are terrible because of Eve. They are deadly because of Eve. Oh my God, kill the snake, kill the snake. Snakes are poisonous. I didn't know what this is. We see it all the time on our snake groups on Facebook. Is this thing poisonous? Sorry, I had to kill it. It's not poisonous. Why did you kill it? It's what we know. Snakes are evil. I mean, but then again, cattle, Chantal, are as important to Namibia's indigenous communities, South Africa's indigenous communities, Africa's indigenous communities, as they are to us as European First Nations. You know about the Yuroks. You know that there's a rune, Urur, for the Yuroks. Cattle are seen in my country. I don't know so much about your cultures, but in my country, cattle are seen as a symbol of wealth. They are seen as a symbol of significance. So your cattle are important. But lions are also. Hyenas have got a bad rap. I don't know why hyenas got a bad rap. Hyenas are apparently scavengers. They're not scavengers. They kill 70% more, in fact, of what they eat than what lions do. But they've got this bad rap. I don't know who gave them this bad rap, but they have a bad rap. The thing is just, this is where the whole, and we're going back to Jung, this is where your collective unconscious comes in, where we actually know what we need to do, but so many things have happened in between with modern civilization that we've forgotten that we actually have the solutions already. Not all snakes are bad, but God, no, snake, Eden and the apple, and it's evil and it's Satan. The Bible makes reference to the lion in two ways. Jesus is the Lion of Judah, and Satan walks around like a lion at night. So, it is, you know, communities that worked with lions, that lived with lions for centuries. Lions are sacred in my country too, in Ethiopia, in the Kava Highlands, they're doing exceptionally well because the lions are sacred. And there's no conflict. There never used to be conflict in Kenya, but all of a sudden there's conflict between the Maasai and the lions. There wasn't conflict. The Maasai had their cattle.
Why do you think, because I'm hearing this more and more, and I want to just ask you this question, then I want to backtrack a little bit. But while we're on the topic, is why do you think there is more conflict now in modern days between the Maasai and the lion than what there was in the past?
Politics, Chantal. This land belongs to the state because we need the tourism, because we need the forex, and it's politics. And the thing is, in my country too, the government is not, we had a whole human-wildlife conflict workshop. The NGOs, foreign NGOs were there. Government was there. The farmers were there. the communities were not there. The traditional authorities, yes, the community leadership, the conservancy leadership, all of those people are there. But the actual people who live in their homesteads and are dealing with the wildlife were not there. We are not, we are simply, what we've done, and what we've done in this country, in my view, we've taken fortress conservation where we fence areas off and keep them pristine. What we've done is we've plonked communities in there and said, the wildlife is yours, you can use it, but we centrally, as government, we will control how you use the resources. And we don't care about what you think or how you have to manage or survive, whether it's rain or flood. But we know better. It's this know better thing. The communities on the ground, whether they can read or write, is irrelevant. They know better. You know, in the old days, they had herding songs, so they would sing to their cattle while they herded them. The cattle herders, I wanted to call them shepherds now. They're not exactly shepherds. We're talking about cattle. So, and they would sing these songs, and the cattle would respond. And in that way, and I still have to do more research on this, in that way, they knew where the predators were because they could see the level of stress in their animals and the response in their animals. Cattle herding and the singing is all but gone. It's all but gone. And I am a European by descent, but I still feel that our communities, our indigenous communities, they know what they need to do. But there's been a monetization of conservation, which has prevented them from applying what they know to apply. All of this is assumption. I'm yet to discover this and prove it, but fingers crossed, I think I'm gonna.
And I think that's what I look forward to us going into later about your PhD, because I know you go into a lot more detail around that. And it's so true. Everything has been politicized. The government controls everything, and it's not for the people's good. We know that by now. What I'd like to see is that I think it's fruitless fighting them, the government, in any country. But what I'd like to see is to turn that system upside down, you know, and the only people who can do that are the people, you know, and by that, when we give them back the knowledge, the skills, the space, because we understand that colonization has had a huge role to play in this, but that's also a story for another day. We're going to get there. And I think it's so important for us to be able to unpack all of this stuff as we go along. And as humans, understand what we as individuals can all do to create the necessary change. Because it's not okay that our Indigenous communities get shoved to the corner of the planet somewhere or the country somewhere and are left to fend for themselves while everyone else reaps the rewards, or those in power reaps the rewards of what is really not theirs to reap. So I think there's that injustice that has to be addressed. There's that it's really about understanding these ancient values and principles and how to use them in the modern day world. Because we can't, you know, we don't want to go back to having to light fire with sticks and stones, right? We've now developed, we've evolved far enough to be able to have a light or matches or something. So, but it's about understanding the principles, the values, the importance of that reconnection to the planet, to our creator, to each other. And then from that place, we can then start changing, create the necessary change. Yeah?
You know, Chantal, these things happened in these tiny little increments. And I don't even think that our Indigenous communities realized what was happening to them. So, you know, in an arid environment such as the southwestern Etosha landscape, they used the communities that lived there. And remember, by this time, they already had access, or they had access to the Etosha National Park. It was reduced later on in size, but so they got a little bit more land, well, outside of the national park. But in the olden days, so they had the access to this park, but it's still dry. I mean, the Western Etosha inside the national park is still dry. So they had this nomadic lifestyle. And the Germans and the South Africans considered it primitive, and they considered it unproductive and not commercially viable. When actually what these people were doing is they were moving because it's arid, as the resources waned here, before they overgrazed, they were moving to the next spot and to the next spot and to the next spot. And of course, both the German and the South African colonial governments looked down on hunter-gathering because it was primitive. You know, they didn't even consider the Haikam people because they couldn't possibly be Bushmen because they're not short and they're not light-skinned and they don't have big bums. So there must be some sort of crossbreed between the Jutkwasi in the dunes on the east of Namibia and of course the Damara on the west of Namibia. So they just sort of let them stay in the park until they decided they weren't going to stay in the park anymore. And the Haikam have sacred sites in that park. Their entire legacy, their history, their ancestors, their truth of their existence is in that park. It's rooted in that area. And they have no voice. So what they got is a couple of resettlement farms on sort of the southwestern perimeter of the park, and now they're supposed to farm. They never farmed.
Wow.
So again, now they're primitive. You see, now they're primitive. And of course, the settler farmers do far better because, you know, they can do cattle production and poison the lions and the hyenas and whatever. And if they can't poison them, then they'll just shoot them for money because there's lots of Europeans and foreigners and even low South Africans, whatever, who will come in to take a lion trophy. And this whole sustainable, I mean, anybody listening to this now or watching this now, everybody will agree Native Americans had balance in nature, right? They knew it, they had the answers, and terrible things were done to them. Why not the Damara, the Ovaherero, and I separate them from the Himba, even though the Himba are part of the Ovaherero, and the Haikam? Why not them? Why are they not the first people of my country to know how we get along with wildlife? Because the Native Americans made that mainstream. They made it mainstream. And at the moment, the only voices that are being heard internationally here are the Jutkwasi, which are our sort of traditional, our known San, our known Khoisan people, the olden day Bushmen, right?
Yeah.
But these people are also first people. And if you
I just want to, so you saying this group of people, this tribe is called the Haikam.
The Haikam, yes.
How do I spell that?
H-A-I, and then it's got two straight lines down, and then O-M. There must be a click in there somewhere, like the Jutkwasi, but I haven't heard it yet because I haven't spoken to their headman yet. I must still go into the field and meet them. They actually brought a challenge in our High Court to reclaim Etosha, and it failed in the Supreme Court.
Okay, so there's a tribe called the Haikam, excuse me, that is a direct, or are you saying they're direct descendants of the Khoisan or the Bushmen?
No, they were their own people.
They're their own people.
They are their own people. They are a true First Nation, like the Jutkwasi and the Damara. They are a true First Nation of Namibia. They didn't come in at any time. We have no record of them, the Jutkwasi or the Damara, arriving in Namibia. We have of the Nama, we have of the Ovaherero, and we have of the Avambu. But we don't have any record of the Haikam, the Jutkwasi, or the Damara arriving in Namibia.
Wow.
At all. So
this is amazing. Now, I want to know how you got onto them. What alerted you to research the Haikam people then?
Journalism.
So now we know.
There we
Okay.
go.
I love it. And we're going to get into your father now because your father's a very, well, he was, rest in peace, Uncle Smitty. Obviously, one of Namibia's icons when it comes to journalism stuff. And I really want to talk about him because he was such an interesting character. And I can so see that apple does not fall far from the tree with you. All I can say is your daddy would be proud of what you're doing now. I'm telling you that now. So before we get on to him, though, I want to know, so talk to me about, I've never heard of them, Yanna. I've never heard of the High Com, and I'm
Oh,
embarrassed
wow.
to say so. So I want to know about them and give us some information on them, please.
But you see, this is part of their marginalization. It's part of their, and they had some issues with their traditional authority to mobilize properly and to try and get First Nations status above the Jutwa, or alongside the Jutwasi. Let me not say above. And they tried, but there's issues, as I say, in their traditional authority, and a lot of things fell apart. And their elders are dying off at a really, really, really fast speed. So I've got to get to them soonest. But they lived in Etosha. They gave the Deutschland trackers hell. When those Boere tried to come from the east of Namibia and they moved through the park to get to Damaraland to try and get into Angola, the High Com gave them hell. And this was their space. But it was sort of southern Etosha because the Ondonga sort of had from Namatoni, I don't know how to explain it, sort of the northern third of Etosha with the swamps and the stuff. And the High Com were in the southern part. And they are all but removed. The last group of High Com were removed somewhere in 84, 86, they were removed. And that's when they began to mobilize because they had lost their ancestral lands. There are some of the water holes in deep southern Etosha that are closed to the public because they are sacred sites for the High Com. So the ministry uses them for game counts and things like that. But they don't have access. They have, and the Ovaherero have no access to theirs from the northwestern side of Etosha. They can't get in there either.
So the government has closed down these people's sacred land.
Yes. I mean, you can go in through the park, I suppose, through the gate and pay and then go, but you would need special permission to get to the closed sites, yes. It's Chantal, it's, yeah. No, it's, you could get there, but you would need to make special arrangements to get there.
But what I'm saying is for the actual High Com people and the Herero people, they actually no longer have access to their sacred sites because the government has closed it off from them.
No, they don't. No, there's no free access at all. If they were to apply for a special permit to get in and to go and do a ceremony for ancestors or whatever, that would be allowed. But they would have to apply for special permission, yes, because Etosha.
Who decided this, Yanna? When did this happen? Who decided? Was this Sam Nyoma?
No. This was just prior to, but it hasn't been changed. It was just prior to independence. It hasn't been changed by the current government.
So who changed it? Was it still the South African government that changed it?
Yes.
Why?
That was when the last. It was when the last High Com were removed from the park. They were becoming a bit of a problem because they had their cattle and they were hunting. So, and then in 86, they eventually realized, okay, they must go. Because, you know, before they were just considered some sort of subspecies, they must have been a crossbreed between the Jukwasi and the Damara on the other side to make this sort of middle, because it couldn't possibly be a Bushman because it's tall and it's not light-skinned and it doesn't have the body build and all of these things. So then they were chucked out. And I mean, the Jan Sumas and them, we had serious high court and then up to the Supreme Court appeals, and they lost access to their land. And they got a couple of resettlement farms run about 2008, just outside the park perimeter, and they're supposed to survive. And there's another group on the eastern side of the park, and they are supposed to just survive now there. But Etosha was their land.
This is, you know, I mean, it's the injustice around this is huge, you know. I can imagine.
It was when I read this, Chantal, and I have been, my father was an anti-apartheid activist. He was a SWAPO member. I was schooled in the convent. in a time when it wasn't cool to be schooled in English or with black kids. But this was truly, as I read these anthropological studies, the first time that I am embarrassed to be white in this country. And this needs to be rectified. I cannot.
But my question is, why did Nyoma not do away with that when he got into power? Why didn't SWAPO do away with that? Why did they not give people back their access to their lands?
Knowing what I know now, and with 32 years of hindsight, Nyoma had a lot of other things that had to be addressed. Black kids had to get into like standard streamlined schools and hospitals and blah, blah, blah. So he did his thing. Puhamba then sort of dropped the ball for 10 years. And then Guyangop, when he started in 2015, it was more about investment and big spending. And 2016, we went into a recession. And of course, government still follows the advice of the foreign, I'm scared to call them powers, the foreign advisors on land and climate change and desertification. There are some theorists that believe that there is no desertification in Damaraland where I work. It's always been this way. But what's sad for me is that in 32 years of independence, well, maybe in 100, 150 years, farmers or pastoralists and nomadic communities have gone from saying lions are holy to quietly poisoning them and feeling nothing. And there is a political and a capitalist and an economic connection there, which I have to uncover before I can even remotely provide government with any kind of solution to human-wildlife conflict. We have to first reignite our communities.
Well, I think, when we just look at the Namibian elections that took place in, when was it, 89, 90? When they got
89,
independence.
Yes.
They were completely controlled by the United Nations, right? And we know that the United Nations is completely CIA based. So we know that Namibia sold out. SWAPO sold out. So
what we do know is that Phil Yanangolo has done Chantal, let me just think quickly. We're 2022 now. When was I? 2006-ish, 5-ish, 6-ish, 7-ish. Phil Yanangolo from the Namibian Human Rights Foundation wrote a series of articles where he alleged that Nyoma was a CIA informant and was actually flown out several times to specific sites and apparently evacuated before Kasinga by the South African Armed Forces. What we also know is that Clemens Kapu, a hero of mine, that man led the freedom for this country. He was the grandson of Osia Kotaku, and he was Ovaherero, and he was part of the old location removals at what is now Hochland Park. And they never made it to being recognized by the United Nations as the original freedom movement, the liberation movement of Namibia. I do not know what happened at that time. I was born in 73, and in 76, SWAPO, the United Nations recognized SWAPO as the official, and SWAPO started off as the Avambo People's Organization. So the Ovaherero were largely excluded from that freedom process and the whole Resolution 435 and the Ondonga or the Avambu, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, they took over and SWAPO became the recognized liberation movement of Namibia, even though Kapu and his counterparts had done light years of work to free this country diplomatically. But SWAPO then took up the armed struggle, and then that was that, and the rest, they say, is history.
Well, I think when we look at what's been sold in Namibia, and I have it on good authority that Sam Nyoma, and for the viewers who don't know, Sam Nyoma was the president of Namibia up until 2015. And he's the one that I believe definitely sold out. And he was very happy to completely destroy the Upopa Falls, right? Upopo, right? Upopo Falls.
Yeah, Epupa, but it never happened. That development never
Yes,
happened. It's still
yes.
safe, yes.
I know, but the reason I believe the development never happened is because then the backers pulled out because they were not prepared. The backers were not prepared to have him destroy the falls,
Let
actually,
me
and they were
give
foreign
you,
backers.
Chantal, I will give you a simple example, a timed, simple example that is just right now so relevant to what you're saying. Okay, so on Tuesday, for those of you who don't know, the south of Namibia is quite arid, very rocky. The Karasberg Mountains are of the youngest in the world. And a fire broke out on Tuesday. Understand? Wait, I must make sure that you can see. So if this is my face, our grasses in the Karasberg grow around the height of my face. Little tufts, very dry, tough people who live there. There's some cool insects there, but okay, we won't go there now. We'll stick with the farmers. And on Tuesday, a fire broke out. And the winds have been raging in Namibia. By Thursday, 260,000 hectares were destroyed. The farms there are quite large because your carrying capacity is very low. So there's about 20,000 hectare farms. So we had 260,000 hectares destroyed. Everybody's mobilizing. Agra, Kaap Agri, Coca-Cola, Droogtehulp Namibia, Droogtehulp South Africa. Burger gave us 250,000. Everybody's mobilizing. People are falling over the stones. It's a very rocky area, so a lot of areas you can't get into. And so you got to fight from far or wait, or they're in the mountains, in the Karasberg Mountains, and you got to just wait for it to burn out. The footage, Chantal, of the sheep and the cattle that I have seen, you do not want even to go there, okay? Government said nothing. The NDF was not mobilized. The police were not mobilized. Nothing. This morning, our Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of International Relations, Netumbo Nandi Ndaitwa, who is currently in the race for Vice President of SWAPO, that Congress will take place on 24 November. She said that our hearts are with the farmers in the south. The fire was extinguished this morning at 4 a.m. Her post came far later than that. They didn't lift a finger, but we are told that agriculture will feed our nation, will lift us out of poverty, and everybody deserves a piece of land. And government did nothing. The president did not at any time from Tuesday until today make any statement on anything pertaining to the Karasberg fire. Nothing. People were injured. Chantal, I have seen sheep stumbling, burnt with 90% of their... I can't even. Nothing. Those people have nothing. In the meanwhile, private sectors are arranging for fodder for those farmers who were able to get their animals out. We spoke to a farmer on Wednesday who said, I see the fire coming into my land. I can't get there. I don't know where my cattle are. I can't find them. Government didn't raise a finger. Our military is not involved in any war. They have nothing to do. They have the resources. Nothing. Private sector and volunteers and our farming community stopped that fire this morning. I'm assuming we're looking at about 320,000 hectares burnt. I don't know what the livestock losses are. I don't want to know what they are. This is where we are. So what would a couple of lions matter if livestock doesn't even? Or a couple of foul hyenas or disgusting poisonous evil snakes? What do we care? You know?
You know, it's just you're telling me the story, and my heart is just shattering.
I know, because I know you know what I'm explaining. You can feel it.
And you know, like not too long ago was the Australian fires, where the same thing happened. You know, and it's just also, I mean, KZN, our floods, and also we've had fires. You know, so it's just one thing after the other. And you know, Yanna, what is so apparent to me is that these people don't really give a rat's backside. So if we as the general public are just going to continue to let them do what they do, it's our own fault. So
Yes.
it is so important for us to create awareness, create knowledge, and to stand up and actually be the voices for change. So I am, again, as you're telling me these things, and you must know what's happening with the farmers in Europe, right?
Yes.
Because the whole objective of this NWO, the New World Order, is to destroy farms. You look at South Africa, how long have we been having land grabs here? And the most violent ways that our farmers are being murdered, children tortured, drowned in boiling water. This is what the level of violence that we're experiencing with our land grabs here. I mean, it's what's
Chantal,
happening. Yeah,
wait. Did you see the video of the table grape farmer in the Boland at Groblersdal and one
no.
in Klaver? So you've got all your vines. We actually had the video. We're following up on it now, news media. Anyway, so you've got all your vines, and then, the vine is most like a stocky, and then it makes that beautiful head, and then the grapes, and it's all gorgeous. Somebody just went and just sawed off under the head, under the whole big plume of what is your grapes. They just sawed off all the vines. There was one event in Klaver and one event in Groblersdal. It's terrorism. I mean, that is not even, how is that even a protest? And a protest against what? That's just terrorism. And if it's a farm worker on that farm, then he's going to lose his job now. So why would you saw off fields of vineyards where they come out and make their head and produce grapes? I don't understand this.
But you see,
this
this is
need
the
to
whole.
destroy.
This is the whole thing. It's like, there's two elements. We have the creative force and the destructive force. So, I say that when we work for a source, God, creator, whatever you choose to call it, we are creators. We work for the good of humanity because through nature, only nature creates. The minute you take nature out of the equation, you've got nothing. And when all of nature is dead, we cannot eat the dollar bill. And that's what we as good humans need to understand is we cannot allow our governments to sell us out anymore. We cannot allow our governments to destroy our first people and our First Nations because they are the ones that have the secrets to living in harmony with this planet, with wildlife, with each other. They hold those
But
secrets
Chantal,
within their DNA.
everybody, every single human being on this planet was once a First Nation.
Yeah.
There is
Absolutely.
nobody excluded from that. We might not be in the same place. You and I are not in the place where our ancestors, forebears, whatever, thousands of years ago were First Nations. But every single human being on this planet was at a point a First Nation. So
Yes.
when we discuss conservation, we must include people. Maybe not governments. Yeah. But people.
No, they could go. They could all go.
The governments
They
can
could
go. The governments can go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But people, because every single one of us, look at children. Chantal, you know with your son, I know with mine. They all grow up. They don't see color. They don't harm animals. Not one of them. They all play with friends, and every single one of them wants to be close to the puppy or the kitten. The only thing we have to do is to teach them to be gentle. So how does a 2-year-old who wants to hug the puppy and play with a little black friend, even though he's poor, it's irrelevant, he's a friend, how does he turn out to be an animal abusing racist when he's 18?
Yeah.
His parents. It's his
Exactly.
parents.
It's exactly that. And that's what we have to turn our head, that's what we have to flip upside down, Yanna. It's that narrative, and really I so look forward to what our future discussions are going to be on this because I'm also working with some of the First Nation people in Australia, as well as here in South Africa, some of the Cherokees. It's really just amazing And you guys, please watch this space. We're doing a lot at this point in time to bring that to the fore, because as I was saying now with to you, Yanna, it's like understanding that when we tap into the ancient cultures, and as you say, all of us are First Nation people, and we have been First Nation people at some point. It's in our cells, it's in our DNA. We cannot exclude ourselves out of that. So, when we choose to support that, we're going right back to our core. We're going right back to the deepest secrets of our DNA, of how to survive and thrive successfully on this planet by creating, not destroying anything that is that has a destructive nature. And look, things have to be destroyed, absolutely, in order to be rebuilt. So yes, everything has a life cycle and it's going to die and what have you. But my point here is if you're going to be part of the cycle that deliberately destroys and creates unnecessary pain and hardship and completely disconnected and have no compassion for other human beings, living beings, you need to think again. We really need to think again, because when we go back to our ancient roots, our core, that's where the secrets lie. And that's when we start tapping into that and bringing that to the fore in a modern world. And
But
using
Chantal,
it in our modern world, we will
the
have
coolest
the
thing.
keys to success.
The coolest thing is what you say is not even necessarily only spiritual. It is scientifically proven. Epigenetics is an inherited system of genes.
Yes.
You have everything you need to know. You just have to have the guts to say to the powers that be, no, no.
Exactly.
So, no.
Exactly.
Today, it's no. Yes.
And that's what we all have to learn to say. Absolutely not. You know what I find astounding is that neither one of us, if you ask anyone if they trust their government and their prime ministers or their presidents or their financial ministers or minister of this, everyone will say no. Yet we bow down when they make us comply with the most draconian, disgusting, inhumane laws. Why do we do this? Why?
Because
Why
we think they know better.
And they don't. And that's my point, because by now we should see they don't know better. If we allow them and sit back and allow them to squash the last bits of our sacred inheritance from our first people that are still actively practicing those cultures, we are killing ourselves. It's a suicide for ourselves. We are destroying. Our children won't have it. Our grandchildren won't have it. I'm here to create pathways for the future. I'm not going to be around to reap the benefits of this in 30 or 50 years, but it's for those that come after us. And that's what it is about for me. So I really think that the more we bring up stuff like this, and this is why I'm so grateful that you're doing what you're doing and getting the proof of this and putting it out there scientifically as well, because most people seem to think if science says it, then I believe it.
Yeah, then it's true. Yes. No, then it's true. Then it's true. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, then it's definitely true. But now that we have said that, I want to know your dad, Smitty, that owned the Windhoek Observer. Now, I got to tell you, long before I even knew you and went to my dad at a farm in the then Southwest Africa. Okay, and we often went to Namibia, Southwest Africa, whatever, on holidays. The Windhoek Observer and Smitty was a household name in my house between my parents and whatever was going on there long before I even met you. So when I went to Namibia to work there, the first time, I think it was 2002, right? I met you not long after that, and I couldn't actually
2006. 2006 was when, yes.
We would have met then in 2006, right?
Yeah.
But I just love, and I just love that I've met his daughter. Your father has a huge legacy. He's got so many incredible stories and things. And as I said earlier, the apple does never fall far from the tree. So tell us about your dad. Tell us what he did and tell us how you relate to that as well.
Well, that's
What
not a
about
tall
you?
order at all, Chantal. That's just, I mean, that's just a small question. That's easy. God, where do you start? You know, you grow up and you like all little girls look at their dads like they're like all like, oh my God, you know, and I, you know, but my father taught me very important things. I traveled with him from the age of 5. I remember I missed the first day of Sabi because my dad was going somewhere traveling. There's obviously long before social media, so you had to drive. And I wanted to go with. So I missed the first day of Sabi. With special permissions, I could go with my dad. And from there on out, every weekend, I would travel with him. So I learned a lot. You know, you see, as a child, I was in the convent, as I said. So, and all the black kids in the convent were well off. And so we were actually the poorest out of the whole lot. And we were poor. We were damn poor. But anyway, anyway. So I didn't understand black poverty because when I went to my friend's house, they had like a double-story house and carpets and all kinds of. Yeah, anyway, so we got to. This is a defining moment for me when I was 9. Hakasep at Isakos, it's the informal settlement. And I got out of the car and I had a doll named after the domestic worker in Gone with the Wind. Her name was Prissy, and my granny had picked up a head as this doll's head on the beach. And do I have time here, Chantal, or must I cut it short? So can I carry on talking?
You go.
Okay. And my granny, having been born in 1907, had suffered enough of the crises of the world. So she picked up this head, and I still actually have Prissy, and she sewed a little fabric body on, stuffed it and stuff, and made a little pink little dress. I loved my doll. It was the only new doll I had when I was 9. And Prissy went with me. And when we stopped at Hakasep, the smell was, and I said to my father, what is this? And he said to me, they don't have toilets. And I said, why don't they have toilets? And I said, because the South African government doesn't think they're worthy of toilets. And I said, why is that? He goes, because they're black. And I said to him, what? And he said, this is apartheid. And I said, but it's wrong. He goes, and this is why we fight. And for me, it was a watershed moment in my life. And of course, my father was just all the more godlike after that. Getting older, you know, my father and I, from the time that I was 12, it got complicated. My father was is a weakling when it came to pretty girls. And so stuff got tricky. He had an illegitimate son, which for me was just because he taught me all those values of truth and honesty. But even though he applied those in his work, and some would say he's a muckraker, and I agree he was a muckraker, but he never lied, not once in a report, but he lied to us. So that was hard, and it was tight up until he died. And I think it's easier when a really well-known person and his daughter dies, because then you can begin the path of forgiveness. And I know his contribution that he made, and I love him dearly, but I can see him honestly. And he was great and brave and poverty-stricken. He left home when he was 16. He slept in the stormwater pipes behind Vernhill. He got his first pair of shoes that year from Mr. Dempert, because his father was a bywoner in those years. For those who don't know, the Great Depression, the white folk also worked on farms, and they were called bywoners. Not that white folk can't work on farms like black folk can work on farms, but it's a different time now. But yeah, he was a complex figure and very entertaining, very, very entertaining. And now, so many years, 14 years, he was dead for 14 years this year in August. He died. I can really begin to smile about his eccentricities, and well, it's been a couple of years that I could smile about his eccentricities and say, oh damn, what would he have said if he was here now? Or what would he have done? Or, oh my God, thank God he wasn't here.
I often wonder how he would have dealt with this spiky flu. I'm not going to say the COVID word.
Oh yeah.
We get struck. I've had my channel struck. I've had my video struck for medical misinformation whenever we talk about these things. Anyway.
Chantal, I don't know. He was very anti-establishment, but damn, was that man scared of an infection. So I don't know how he would have, because he would panic. Like if there was like a thing that wouldn't go away, he would say, "Ek moet werk, ek kan nie met hierdie ding." You know, so I don't know what he would have. I really actually cannot gauge, but I know he would have nailed government for the lockdowns, even though he would have been free to travel. I mean, I was free to travel and work, but he would have the economy and stuff. No, he would have gone ape shit.
I do
Excuse my
believe that.
language. Yeah.
Because he was a really he was an incredible journalist. He's just to let our viewers know, he had the reputation of never leaving a stone unturned. So he would go to the depths of wherever he needed to get that story, to get the truth, to make things. He would
follow up. Those years you'd get a call. There's papers under a stone at the road lay-by 20 kilometers south of Otjiwarongo. You have 2 hours. He'd get in his car and go because you don't know whether it's a prank or not. That day there were documents. So he had this way, and people trusted him, and he never gave up his source. I mean, he went to jail because he didn't give up his source. And my mom says he should have gone back again because that week was the best ads she ever had in the paper. We made so much money. But then after a week, he got out on bail. So, and then we won on appeal. He was very upset that she had said that. I can't even terug to me, even though he got 3 hotel meals every day because everybody was just pouring shit at Swakopmund jail. Oh, man, I tell you. And the
he was like the national hero, right?
Yeah, right. Totally. So, but yeah, he was, and he was interesting, you know, but he was very complicated. And I think he was quite embarrassed about his roots. And I think he wanted to be better. And I think
he certainly made a difference with what he did. That's for sure. And that's why I say when I look at you, I so see that apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because it's like you have got the same grit and the same tenacity as what he had. And yes, obviously you're doing it in the way that you need to do it and the way that works for you. But it's beautiful to know that, you know, the way I see it and what you're doing right now, his spirit works with you as well, just to continue the things that ultimately, you know, are important for him as well, which is liberation and freedom. Really, that's what he stood for, liberation and freedom.
He always said his people Namibia needs to be free. But for me, I think the most outstanding thing, besides his fairness and his freedom fight for this country, I think for me, my father's weakness was animals. Far more than skirted women. Animals was definitely, God, that man had a love for animals, which I can't even compare. And it's the only time I ever saw him cry was with animals. He never cried for people. He cried for animals. He didn't even cry for his own mother, but he cried for the animals.
Wow. And that's another trait you've inherited. I mean, I don't say you don't cry. I know you do. But,
I cry for me.
And for me. Okay.
And for you. Yes. Yeah. No, I cry for humanity. No, but my father was really, he was just about the animals. And all of them. He couldn't stand it. He was patron of the SPCA for a long, long time. So, but not that he ever actually dealt, because he couldn't deal at all with the abuse animals. I remember his famous fox terrier, Cerberus, and he was driving in his Skyline GTX, anyway, outside of Rehoboth, and he hit 1986, and he hit a horse. And said he was lying in his lap, and the steering wheel had crumbled, obviously, as the horse had rolled over this dashboard or this bonnet and whatever, and had knocked Cerberus unconscious. But my father had all the glass, so he was bleeding profusely from the face. And he looked down at his unconscious, bloody dog. That man ran 3 kilometers carrying his dog back to Rehoboth, to the police station, not to phone my mother, but to phone the vet to save his dog.
Oh, my word. Oh. Wow. How insane is that?
Cerberus was fine. He was a bit concussed, but all the blood on him was my father's face. So it was fine.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah for that. Or just to, and just for those of you who, because I sometimes tend to take for granted that we have international viewers as well. Yanna's father was, we call him Smitty, and he owned the Windhoek Observer, which was the Namibian news publication that was kind of like king of everything, all the publications for many, many years. And he was an
It was a
amazing
weekly with
weekly,
the
yes.
titties on the back. Yes, with the titties on the back page. So the
And he
South
always,
African
and
government
you
hated
got to
us.
know, for many years in our country, pornography and anything nude was banned, banned, banned. And if ever there was a girl that was slightly nude, her nipples were covered with stars. Okay, they put stars on her nipples. So in Namibia or Southwest Africa, you guys lived with different rules to us, though.
No,
Although
no.
no,
The South
you
African forces raided us all the time, Chantel. My father would sometimes cut those smalls, those stars for the titties so small you could barely see them because we worked manually those years with the compositing. And then he would just say, we took the pages down and one star fell off. No, we were raided all the time by the safety and security police. Oh my, we were eventually banned. We had to go to the High Court in Pretoria to fight that banning because of the titties on the back page. Yeah,
So you see, if he was prepared to fight to have his titties on the back of his publication,
titties, yes, the titties were the thing. It was
can you
terrible.
imagine?
We had parents phone us, or I would have like friends at school say, my dad would buy the Observer, then my mother must first tear the back page off and burn it before us children can read the newspaper. No, it was a terrible time with the titties, the agterblad. It was bad. Yeah, he eventually stopped it, I think late 90s, when it was just no more a rebellion kind of up against, the establishment thing. So, yeah, but he hated having to obey.
Well, you can see that you're his daughter, and I love it. And wow, just looking at the time, and we're almost done with our hour. And I really enjoyed this, and I love chatting about. As I said, because when for those who knew your dad and they know you, you will see that you are so continuing the things that I know he probably would have loved to have done himself as well. So I'm very grateful that we could chat today and just kind of get the gist of what you're doing and what we're going to be looking at in the future, because honestly, I think it is so important for us just to, our world cannot heal. We as a nation, as a species, we cannot heal unless we dig up this disgusting underbelly. Otherwise,
Yes.
it's like putting a plaster on a septic wound.
Yes.
It's not going to heal it. We have to take it out. We have to inspect. We have to look where we went wrong. We have to change the things and create a space, a world, an environment where everyone thrives.
Isn't it interesting,
Particularly
Chantal?
us.
We have to go back, not forward.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
have to go back.
And relook.
We have
Yeah.
messed everything up so badly. We have to go back
Yeah.
and build on what we knew. And yes, technology is fantastic. Technology is marvelous, and we can use it in human-wildlife conflict. We can use it in conservation. But first, we have to go back.
I
Because
love
we
that.
had it. We had the answers. We had everything until wildlife became a monetary value.
It's exactly true. And no sentient being should ever be sold for money, or that is it should not be. You
Even though
cannot.
it is, we can't, and I'm not going to avoid that in my studies, but what I want to find is a way that that sentient being that lives there is not going to eat this sentient being that lives here simply
Yes.
because nobody did anything.
Yes.
I'm not saying
exactly.
there won't be losses. I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that we are not going to discriminately poison predators.
Yes.
And just to save cattle, or chase cattle in because to areas where we have predators because we can get compensation. It has to, we have to go back to, we are the land and the land is us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's like the Bushman people, they say that the land does not belong to us, we belong to the land.
Correct.
So
And
it
one
really
day,
is.
when I have my interview with a High-Com chief, I will give you a heads up. You will have a week. Get your ass here. You come with me.
Deal.
Okay.
I think that'll be amazing. I would love
Yes.
that. Mwah. What an awesome note to end off on. Yanna, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to having you back in future where we discuss more in detail what your thesis is about, what we need to know about, what we as individuals can do to, in our own way, even start to change things. I think change begins with consciousness. It begins with an understanding. It begins with the way we perceive things differently. And when we can start, maybe that penny drops just and opens up your awareness to something that you as an individual can do, that's already half the battle won.
Absolutely. But
So,
thank you.
I thank you, my beautiful friend. Yay. As I said, I've been stalking you for months now. Finally, I have you. And you tried to get out of this one today as well. And I'm very happy that you didn't. Okay?
Busted. Thank you, Chantel. Thank you
Love
so much.
love you. Okay, guys and girls. Thank you so much for watching us on SOULutions with Aquarius Rising Africa. We're going to, as I said, be doing a whole lot more on this, the whole Indigenous rescue, the Indigenous getting together, going back to our roots, integrating these beautiful ways, not just with Yanna and co, but with Bruce Shillingsworth, Rasul, Snyman, Andy Bond. These are all people that are direct descendants of the first tribes or the First Nations people that we're dealing with here, or working with here rather. So watch the space. Lots of exciting things happening regarding this. And until we meet again, God bless you all. Please like, share, subscribe. Just share. This is so important. Thanks, guys.